Hey, folks, welcome to another episode, playoff edition of What's Bruin here on 6342 Productions. I am your host, Chris Nozick, joined by my co host, as usual, the great Dominator, Dominic Tiano. Dom, how you doing this week?
I'm tired. I had an hour's sleep last night. That's it. But I took a nap before coming on and dreamt that I fell asleep through partway through the podcast. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen.
Well, hopefully that doesn't come to fruition. The good news is if it does, I'll just end the show and let you sleep. It's okay. We've had some late nights from these playoffs, but as we were talking before, it's been a week and it's been a series flip. Florida now leads 3-1 in the series, and
hmm
we've got we've got a lot to get caught up on, a lot to get caught up on, and that doesn't include the hockey itself. Um, let's. I think we should start back game three. Um, kind of how'd you feel going into that one?
Well, let's go back even game two because we
All right,
talked
let's go
about
to
it
game.
last week because we were wrong before game two.
Yep, that's true.
and um, I spoke heavily about a guaranteed loss or a scheduled loss, and that was the game. And um, you know, I felt then that the Bruins knew they were not going to sweep Florida. So somewhere there is what the team would consider a scheduled loss, and to me, game two was it because in game one, Florida was just coming off a layoff. They were a little bit rusty. They're at home. They're down 1-0, and they were going to throw everything they had at Boston and come out with the victory, as we all know. Um, I had even suggested that that was the game to start Linus Allmark because it. I deemed it as a scheduled loss. I'm sure the team did, and that would have been the time to give Swayman a break. I got some negative feedback from a lot of people on Twitter about that, or X, whatever we're calling it these days. And I want to go back and tell a story from 2011, if I can. And
Absolutely, rookie stories,
it
Dom.
was the OHL playoffs between the Owen Sound Attack and the London Knights. And it was game six. Owen Sound was just coming off a 6-0 spanking of the London Knights. And I remember getting to the game very, very early. I joined all of the London Knights players' parents for lunch. It was an afternoon game at Boston Pizza. I actually went there for lunch and they asked me to join them. And we sat down, and at the time, the Owen Sound Attack had a number one goaltender. I don't think most people around here have heard of him before. He did go on and have a little bit of success in the National Hockey League. His name was Jordan Binnington. And we're sitting there having lunch, and I got a text saying, "You're not going to believe this, but Owen Sound is starting Michael Zador in net." And I was, "What?" And they said, "Yeah, he's starting today." Zador was a player they had just acquired, a goalie they had just acquired at trade deadline. Binnington was their number one. Stager was their number two. Um, and Zador was just going to be their goaltender of the future. And I told one of the parents, and it quickly got around the table. There's like 60 of us sitting there. And they're like, no, 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 it's impossible. There's no way. So we got to the arena, and sure enough, Zador was listed as starting in net um, for Owen Sound. And I asked the coach after the game, I said, why? He says, we deem this game a scheduled loss. We're in London. We just spanked them 6-0. We're up 3-2. They're going to throw everything they can at us. And London outshot them something like 43 to, I don't know, it was under 20 that Owen Sound had, and won the game 1-0, eliminating London and going on to win the OHL championship. Um, that is something I talked about last week. I said, you never know. You throw Linus in and anything can happen. The team plays different, but the key to it was giving Swayman that break. And it, for whatever reason, it didn't happen. And the Bruins didn't do it. I'm not knocking them for it, but at some point, you've got a goaltender, who's never played 7 games in a row at this level or the AHL level. A break would have been nice.
Yeah. I would say, though, that my counter to that would be Swayman isn't the reason why they're down 3-1.
No,
if
they're
anything,
not.
he's the reason why they've had a chance to win. I know that the scores, they've allowed 6 goals in 2 of the 3 games since, but it just, those aren't all on him. Maybe there's 1 or 2 here and there that you sit there and go, you'd like him to have it, but he's certainly not the reason or on the list of reasons as to why you're in the position that you're in. Honestly, I would say he's the only one playing well on the team consistently right now. And
I give you all that, Chris. I give you all that, and I see it, and I know it. But there is such a thing in hockey as a scheduled loss.
Yes, I agree.
There is. And that's where you want to give your starter the break.
Would you have given other players a rest as well?
Yeah, they're coming off. They were coming off a 7-game series with no time off, a series that shouldn't have gone 7 games, to be honest with you. And there's guys that needed a break.
Well, we all know how that one ended.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go to game 3, and I mean, very similar to the Toronto series, you get outchanced, outshot, outbattled. Like, there's just so many reasons why you shouldn't be in it, and yet you are tangibly close to a tipping point where you can just feel the game get away from you during the whole thing. Obviously, game 3 is the one that had, let's see, I have the lists here. You had so many people who got tossed out. Let me see. For the misconducts for Florida, you had Cousins, Kulikov, Luosterainen, Mikkola, Reinhart, and Tkachuk. And for Boston, you had Maroon, Brazeau, Frederick, Marchand, McAvoy, and Pastrnak, all with like 10 minutes left in the game. By that point, the game was out of control. Pasta gets into a fight against Tkachuk, of course. What were your thoughts on how that game ended? There was a lot of talk about how it was nice to see the pushback, regardless of the score. Pastrnak getting in the fight with Tkachuk, means a lot to the locker room and all these things. And what was your thoughts on how it ended?
I'm all fine with that. What I have an issue with in game 3, and I have sort of the same issues but different in game 4, is, okay, in game 3, you're up 1-0. You're seemingly in control, and they were at that point because Florida couldn't get to their game. You have a Brad Marchand missed open net. You have
that was the one Beecher missed the open net on too.
You
right?
had John Beecher missed open net, and you have Charlie Coyle rigging one off the crossbar quarter inch would have made a difference on that one. All in the first period. If two of those, give Coyle the post, but if those two empty netters had gone in, it's 3-0, a different game, different outcome at the end, and a different series.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's the ongoing issue with this team that they just cannot finish. They can't. You go to game 4 and you're up 2-0, 2-0 at this point, and you have 3 breakaways.
And you miss on all of them.
You miss on the closest one was DeBrusque beating Bobrovsky and it going wide. It's like convert on one of those, different game, different outcome.
The whole thing comes down to so many times where you can sit there and nitpick and say, if this, then domino effect changes everything. And there are so many of those moments in game 2, game 3, mostly 3 and 4. Game 2, like you said, kind of a scheduled loss, but there were still moments there where you can point to them and say, if you finish here, if this mistake doesn't get made, and we're going to get into it more, but if this bad call by the official doesn't get made, and we're not going to sit here and blame the officials for the team losing, because they're not the reason why the Bruins are losing. They're not helping, and they've certainly made their vast majority of mistakes. And that's not just in this series. There have been a bunch of mistakes and inconsistencies when it comes to a bunch of calls and stuff like that. We'll get into those, but that's not why you're losing. You're losing because you can't finish. Now, I want to jump ahead a little bit because today Sweeney spoke to the media before they left for Florida. And there was a comment that he made where he was talking about how they're a team that looks for quality shots as opposed to the quantity of shots.
Mm-hmm.
However, when you're missing breakaways, when you're missing open nets, at what point do you sit there and because Bobrovsky's save percentage is not outstanding. He's not posting at a .954.
Okay, stop right there. Okay, stop right there.
Go ahead.
And I'll give you your answer. Bobrovsky is what, at an .860 save percentage?
Roughly that, yes.
Okay, going into game 2, Jeremy Swayman was stopping 10 pucks more than Sergei Bobrovsky out of every 100 shots. 10. Even out the shots in the series based on save percentage. And what's the scores in those games?
Well, that's my question.
Hold on. Let me finish.
Yep.
Okay. Now you made me lose my train of thought. Okay. So Brandon Carlo's goal is a classic example of how much Bobrovsky is fighting the puck. So quality over quantity in this series, for me, doesn't work. I need to see quantity. I need to see, can they get at Bob? They don't even know if they can get at Bob. They don't, because
I think you know that you can, because he has let in what he's let in. The types of goals. I mean, you're talking bar down for Lori. You're talking 2 goals for Brandon Carlo. When was the last time Brandon Carlo had 2 goals in 4 games?
I think his first season.
Like that's ridiculous. And I will say, James has it here. This is what I was talking about, why I brought it up. Because you've got the GM and the coach saying, we're not a quantity shot team. We're looking for good shots to get through from the point and try to do this and try to do that. But then you've got the players that come out and sit there and say, we need to get more pucks on net. We need to get pucks through to the net. We need to shoot more. We need to shoot more. There's a disconnect somewhere. Mm-hmm. And James says the players contradict the GM and say they need they need to up the quantity, yet the GM and coach say they need quality over quantity. So I agree with you in this series right now. They need to shoot more. I mean, it's pretty bad when you have the entire crowd in Boston chanting, shoot the puck. You have 12,000 plus chanting to shoot the puck, and yet they're not doing it because that's not what the coach wants them to do. And I get it. There is a level where a good shot, because that's what they've, Lorai's shot was a good shot. He waved off Pasternak to make it, but it was a good shot nonetheless. And Carlo, that wrister the other day, was a nice, clear shot. But at some point, you just got to throw pucks at the net and hope for a deflection. Try and do something, because what you're doing right now has put you in a 3-1 hole.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So
especially when you have a goalie like Bob in there with an .860 save percentage.
Now, my question is a little bit of a larger kind of picture question. Real quick, James adds on. The two can be the same too. Panthers have more high danger chances and more quantity at the same time. It doesn't have to be one or the other. I mean, right now you're not getting quantity, so the quality looks better, but it just anyway. What I was saying is it to me it brings up a bigger question, because a couple years ago when they fired Bruce Cassidy, I believe it was Trent Frederick was asked in his exit interview, what can you do better next year? What can you do for this? And he looks at the reporter and goes, I don't know, shoot more. And yet last year, everything looked fantastic because of the run they went on in the regular season, historically good. And then everything fell flat on their face in the playoffs. And right now we're looking at a similar face plant, in the sense that right now there's a huge disconnect. And the players are saying one thing, the coach and the GM are saying something else. Is anybody on the same page over there?
No. And to go back to Frederick's comment about Cassidy was a quantity over quality shot type of coach. Cassidy wanted quantity. So if Frederick is thinking that about Cassidy, what's he thinking today about Montgomery?
Well, that's the question. Because
we don't know until one of them comes out and says something. We don't know.
Bob reaches out, says, hi, Dom, big fan, first time, long time. When can I expect your OnlyFans to drop?
I don't get it. When can I expect my OnlyFans to drop? I don't have any fans.
Yeah, you only have one fan. Let's see. BG411, Bruins least amount of shots on net in the Toronto series was 22 in game 4, most 34 in game 3. Bruins had quantity against the Leafs. Bruins can't sustain pressure in the offensive end against Florida. Pressure in the offensive zone helps, but when they're having the puck in there and they're just keeping it around the perimeter, and like it doesn't help that they're not putting a single shot on net. The quality is dropped drastically.
I disagree with that, because when the Bruins can get pucks in behind the Florida defense and get in on their, it depends on the game and the situation, get in on their 2-1-2 setup or 1-2-2 setup and work from high to low, they actually do pretty well.
They're just not sustaining anything in the attacking zone at this point. It's like they pass the puck around for a bit, they get one shot, and then all of a sudden it's back out of the zone. They got to go back into the neutral zone and regroup.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. It just doesn't. It's not working. So at what point do you sit there and say, just start throwing pucks on net? Screw what the coach is telling you. Throw pucks on the net. I mean, again, it's a contradiction. Why aren't they on the same page? That's
don't
my
know.
question. But
don't know, and we'll never know.
And like I said, we're not sitting here blaming the officials. However, there's a few things that they do have to kind of answer for at this point. First of all, I want to try and go as sequentially as I can first. We'll come back to the Bennett hit on Marchand in a minute, but the Jacob Lauko goaltender interference call. What were your thoughts on that penalty call?
Not a penalty.
do you see why they called it a penalty at all? Because to me, it wasn't a penalty either. He was clear cut.
99.9% of the time, I can find an excuse. If that Lauco play was a penalty, then the Bennett one was.
Well, the Bennett one was clear as day based on the rule book. It doesn't say anything in Rule 69 about the potential for saves or not. Because if you look at the league's explanation on the one yesterday, their explanation was basically, oh well, he didn't have a chance to save it anyway, so let the goal count. But that doesn't matter whether he had a chance to make a save or not. That's not part of the rule. The rule is you push a defensive player into the goalie, it's not a goal. Clear as day.
And you can call a penalty.
And you can call a penalty. Now, the way it should have gone was as soon as Bennett touched the puck, they should have blown it dead for a cross check. But I get it. Those kinds of little fights and battles in front of the net happen all the time. You're not going to call the cross check. That's fine. I'm not bitching for a cross check call. It's goaltender interference. And if you're going to call Lauco for it the game before, you got to call Bennett for it in this game. That one's much more clear.
My issue, I have a lot of issues with it. Like I said, if the Lauco one was a penalty, this one was a penalty. The unwritten rule is that if you prevent the goalie from making the save, it's goaltender interference. I don't think anywhere does it. Well, the whole thing is interpretation. How was it interpreted?
Which we'll never know because the league isn't going to come out and tell us.
Right. We'll get to that later. Okay. Here's something that nobody's talking about. Okay. And the fault with the goal is, why did Charlie Coyle have his back towards Bennett? Why wasn't he facing him and boxing him out? Because if he was, that play never happens. Answer me that one.
I mean, that's a question for Coyle. I think it was because he was looking where the puck was, and he was trying to be in position to get away as someone. But I know it's a question that has to be asked for sure.
Saying it's a question for Coyle is the easy way out, Chris. We're here to dissect and break down what happened. And that's an issue. And it's an ongoing issue with this team, is a lot of times they're caught facing the wrong way. What was Mason Lohrei doing going after the guy without the puck when Barkov just beat two of his teammates?
Well, Rob says, I think Coyle was covering for Peak, who left his feet to play D down low. But to your point, Coyle is in the crease already, and maybe that's why they call. But again, that's an explanation that we need to have. That's the only thing I can think of is they're trying to say, well, Coyle entered the crease on his own volition, so from there it's all fair game. But again, that's not the fucking rule. So I get what you're saying. There's questions to be asked that lead up to it, but those questions are all moot if they call it correctly.
But on the other hand, I could say if Coyle played it right, there wouldn't be a need for the call.
There's an angle too that because some people are saying, well, he didn't have a shot at making the save. Swayman didn't have a chance. There's an angle where you can actually see Swayman is tracking the puck across the crease, and he's in the process of trying to move over because he doesn't know where the hell Coyle is. And so he's in the process of making his move to cut from post to post. But of course, then Coyle lands on him. So we'll never know if he was going to make the save. But I would like to try to I'm going to have to go back and look at it and see kind of where Coyle was like prior to entering the crease to cover.
Coyle was on the edge of the crease.
Right. No, I meant like kind of going into that part of the play, because if Peak did go down low, like what was he
Oh,
like?
Peak did, but it's irrelevant. I mean, I've coached hockey at a high enough level to know what Coyle's responsibility is in that situation. And
Yeah, he just wasn't doing it.
you've heard me say 1,000 times, goals in the NHL happen because of mistakes. If there are no mistakes, there are no goals in hockey.
Yeah,
They just don't happen. Coyle made a mistake.
he made a mistake, but it still shouldn't have been a goal. Like I
Right.
said, if it's called correctly, that's the part that I have a bigger issue with, because black and white rule, there is no interpretation of what the rule is. It's black and white. The rule, they got it wrong, and it was the game tying goal. So that jobs
No,
him in that game.
the interpretation comes from the unwritten rule of, did it prevent the goaltender from making the save?
It's,
And
if it's not written down, it's not a rule.
but there's all sorts of unwritten rules in the NHL.
There are all sorts of unwritten rules in baseball too, and that's what makes it sometimes a terrible game. If it's
Right.
if you want it to be a rule, put it in the rule book. I don't.
I can only tell you what it is.
I know. I'm just. To me, it's that simple. Let's see. Rob says, "Sorry, just rewatched. Peak didn't leave his feet voluntarily. He fell from the shot block. Think he came down low to help since Peak was down and out."
Right, but he didn't help, because I guarantee you, Andrew Peak, had he been in that position, wouldn't have had his back to Bennett.
Yeah, I mean, Rob, if you went back and looked, do you see where
he's
Bennett
right?
is?
It was the shot block.
But do you see where Bennett is when Coyle enters the crease? Because that's the other question that I have is, Bennett came in on the blind side of Coyle because Coyle was facing the puck. Like, where did Bennett come in from? How was he so wide open? Like, yes, that should have been Coyle's man, but like, someone should have been able to alert Coyle that he was coming down behind him. Like, things fell apart. Like you said, that's the reason why the puck went in.
Mm-hmm.
But it shouldn't have stayed on the board. Plain and simple.
The rule is the rule.
So,
but you saw the air deflate in the Bruins when they couldn't extend the lead and Florida scored their first goal. Like, let's face it, Jeremy Swayman was too concerned about the hug with Linus Ullmark after the game than hugging the goalpost on that shot. That shot should not go in on an NHL goalie. It should not. The reverse VH or the VH, whatever you want to call it, whatever he could have used in that situation, doesn't go in on an NHL goalie if he plays it the way he's supposed to. But for me, Swayman gets a pass because without Swayman, they aren't where they are.
Right. Rob, real quick, says if you watch the play, he's covering both the Panther at the side of the net that Peak can't defend since Peak is down, and Coyle's trying to cover Bennett too. Okay. I mean, it is a tough break, but I like you said, I definitely noticed, and there was a definitive deflation when that goal was scored, for sure. That was the start of it. However, that goal goes in. If the refs get it correct and they call it off the boards, that building goes fucking nuts. And I think you regain some of that energy. You regain some of that momentum. They got it wrong, and all that did was deflate. It just popped the balloon entirely.
Yeah. But it's, again, you said it earlier, we could play the what if game through a lot in this series. But it all boils down to one thing. The Bruins are having trouble scoring.
Oh, yeah.
It's not their defending that's been an issue. It's not their goaltending that's been an issue. It's they can't score, and thus they can't win a hockey game.
That was not that play as boneheadedly incorrect. I mean, you've got Leafs fans and Steve Dangle going on 10-minute rants on his own show defending the Bruins that wasn't a goal. You've got everyone on the TNT panel sitting there going, I thought that was coming off the board. No one. Jeff Merrick says that he thought it was going to stick, but I don't believe him for a second. When you saw that replay, I don't think anybody in their right mind looked at that replay and went, it's going to stick. And then when they called it, they tried to justify why it would stick. And some people who don't have they don't have any skin in the game, that's fine. You want to try to justify it and whatever, fine. Again, that play is single-handedly not the reason why they lost this game, but my God, was it a huge momentum shift. It was a huge momentum shift. And the whole what if factor keeps coming out. Because what if they get it right? Well, we won't know. But and like Rob said, still 10 minutes left, even with the bad call. Bad call, but good teams find ways to give some kind of pushback with half a period to go at home. And there wasn't any. They didn't throw pucks at the net. They didn't try to. They couldn't capitalize on the other end.
2 shots in the third period,
which is terrible. Real quick, he also made a comment. I wanted to get back to it, Rob. I didn't ignore it. He said the consistent D-to-D when they're struggling to break out seems to eventually lead to a lot of self-inflicted turnovers. Is it a lack of offensive talent from the back end that leads to the messy breakouts? A couple questions here. And then he says, do forwards need to come back deeper into support? Do they need to stop the D-to-D and just go high off glass and fight for it in the neutral zone?
No, I think what they're trying to do is draw Florida in deeper to open up room between the forechecker and the neutral zone. That's what I think they're trying to do.
Yeah, I think they're trying to trap them in some way. Let's see. BG says Bruins sat on the 2-0 lead and Carolina was consistent throughout. Bruins need to I think he meant he corrected it to Florida. But he says Bruins need to dictate play in Game 5. I mean, they dictated play in Game 1, so we know they're capable of it. It seems like every time momentum can shift away from the Bruins, the balloon pops, and they cannot find a way to reinflate it, and so they just collapse.
Look, they've shown all year long that against this team, they can dictate play.
They went 4-0 against them in the regular season.
Yep.
Where is that now?
It's non-existent. It's there in spurts, but I don't know. You just can't, against this team, you cannot sit back and try and protect the lead. You have to keep the pedal on the metal and just keep going. And they're not doing it.
Got to play a full 60. But you know who has been playing the full 60? I will give, aside from Swayman, one other player when they came back into the lineup. They're playing
Jacob
the
Lauko.
full 60. Jacob Lauko. And they cannot pull him from this lineup right now. He has to be in this game.
No.
Let's see. Rob also says, do the D not have the talent to draw them in like that and then make a guy miss and make a solid breakout pass?
Sure they do. McAvoy's capable of it. Lindholm is. Mason Lohrei is.
Doesn't help that McAvoy and Lindholm are struggling like something fierce now, though.
And that's the thing. Like, we see instances throughout the game where McAvoy is talking to Lohrei, and I get that he's trying to help a young player learn. But there's several times when McAvoy has needlessly gone over to Lorai's side to try and help him out, and has been more of a detriment than a help.
Yeah, he's got to focus on just doing his thing.
Yeah.
If Lorai makes a mistake, let Lorai make the mistake. He's playing extreme. Right now, you could make the case that Lorai is one of their top 2 defensemen. I would put Carlo and Lorai right up there.
Yeah.
Rob says even when the Bruins had a 2-0 lead, they were giving up chances left and right. When the Panthers have the lead, it takes so much effort to get one scoring chance. Panthers know how to lock it down. Bruins have locked it down a lot, just not in these games. We know they're capable of it. I think they're better doing it when you have Wotherspoon and Peak in there. Forbort, sorry, but he just wasn't getting the job done. So I'm glad to see that Wotherspoon found his way back into the lineup. But overall, Lindholm, McAvoy, they're just struggling too much with every little thing. They're mentally, they are screwed. They're just screwed mentally right now. They have to unscrew themselves and get back into it. BG says fatigue is setting in. It would have been huge to finish off the Leafs in 5 or 6. Absolutely. This is the penalty that you're getting from not closing it out. When you had the chance, you let it go 7. This is what happens. That's why they say good teams close it out right away.
Yeah. It goes back to weeks ago. We had the conversation. You asked me, if you're 3-1, do you give so-and-so a break and insert this guy or that guy? And my initial response was yes. And then a week later, I changed my mind and said, no, game 4 or the 4th win is the hardest one to get. And that's when you go for it. You don't change anything because we saw what could happen.
Absolutely. And real quick, Rob puts this: historically, Bruins teams of the past were nails when it came to playing with the lead. This year, it seems they are way too loose with the lead. I mean, we can compare this team to teams of the past all we want, but most of those teams of the past didn't win either. So we're really comparing one failure to another if you want to only measure success as a cup championship. That being said, we had this conversation a little bit. I think it was last week or the week before. I think it was last week. Is this season a success? And the overall resounding thought process was yes, because you made it past the Leafs. Everything else is gravy at this point because it was supposed to be a transition year. Now, I don't think, like you said, the 4th game is the hardest to win. You have to make it the hardest to win for Florida, but you can. You can. You're not out yet. You're not out until the 4th game bell wins. Until that bell goes off in game 4 for Florida with the lead, you are not out and you're not eliminated. You got to make this one the hardest one for them to get. Rob says McAvoy in the playoffs makes a lot of bad plays that you see from guys who have all the tools but no toolbox. Seems like in crunch time he gets mental tunnel vision and stops seeing the whole ice. Thoughts?
I don't agree with that. I think McAvoy is a very intelligent player. He sees the ice extremely well. What McAvoy has to do is, if he's paired with Lorai, he has to stop thinking that he's got to go over and help Lorai with every single puck. He doesn't have to. Like Chris said, let Lorai make his mistakes. Lorai will learn from it. Eventually, he'll be a much better player because of it. McAvoy is making mistakes by going over and thinking that he has to help with every puck, and he doesn't.
Here's my other solution. Put Lorai with Carlo, Lindholm with McAvoy. I know the two of them are both struggling, but if you can get the mental, I have a rookie next to me, out of McAvoy's head, you might be able to flip a switch in McAvoy. And Carlo can cover for Lorai. Carlo's the type of defensive defenseman that can say, you do the offense, I'll do the defense, get back and help. That's it. Worry about this. Granted, you're getting offense from Carlo too, so he can help you on the front end as well. Rob says, but when the games aren't as important, you don't see those same mistakes. Not sure if it's the pressure from the bright lights, if it's just fatigue from the long season and the load he carries. I mean, he is logging more minutes of ice time than anybody, but I really don't think that's what it is. I think it's the mental load of having a rookie next to him. He thinks he's got to make up for him. Let's see. He also adds, I think back to the Nylander goal that sealed one of the Leaf games. Mac chased a guy to the boards and left the middle ice wide open, gift wrapped a breakaway.
Well, he gift wrapped Matthews a breakaway. It's, hockey is a game of mistakes. They will happen.
Did the same recently against Panthers. Chased Barkov on a 3-on-2. Barkov passed it to, I think, Rodriguez, which then all of a sudden it's a 2-on-1. Just low IQ, low percentage plays that were almost identical.
Well, no, because on a 3-on-2, depending on the situation and how long of a 3-on-2 it is, and by long I mean the distance, you want one player attacking the puck, and you want the other defender playing the 2-on-1. You have a better chance of defending a 2-on-1 than you do a 3-on-2. That's why you attack.
Yeah, those are two plays that are just played different. But it just, I mean, they're struggling. And you're going to have more mistakes when you're struggling. That's the thing. I think it comes down for McAvoy, just that mindset that he has a rookie next to him, someone that he knows has been called up and sent down all year, and he feels that he needs to go over and cover for him, and he's doing it to a detriment right now. So, but I do want to.
Which is something we don't see Carlo do when he's paired with him.
That's why I'm saying switch the pairings up a little. See if you can get that mind block out of McAvoy by putting him with a veteran in Lindholm. I get it. Lindholm's struggling too. So it's kind of a, are you sure you want to do it? But at the same time, Lorai's one of the better defensemen right now. Carlo's one of the better defensemen right now. Keep them out on the ice a little more. Take some of the minutes that you're giving Lindholm and McAvoy and give them to those two. Obviously, situation dependent. At least 5-on-5 minutes, you can do that. But, it again, in a larger picture, season's been successful. I'd like to see some physicality, punching back. We were talking about Lauko coming in the lineup. He's won the one spot that he gets called for that goaltender interference. He goes, he serves his penalty, and what does he do? He comes out and scores a fucking goal within 3 minutes. He is the only one like right now. He's the one who should be wearing a letter. Him and Maroon. Because they're the ones that are trying to lead this team emotionally. Let's see. Blue Jays, Bills, Bruins, and says, what's your assessment of Montgomery this series?
Boatman, the Toronto Argonauts. You're American. You won't know that, Chris. I don't know. I mean, we can go back to the very beginning of the show and say there's some disconnect between the players and the coach because they're saying two different things when it comes to shot quality and quantity. I don't think we're seeing the roster moves that we saw against Toronto that make you go like, what the fuck? So, I don't know. Could Could he have called out the referees and swayed the referees decisions in the future? Might be too little, too late now. You're down 3-1. I will say this. I know Don Sweeney's getting a shitload of crap on social media for not calling them out.
But he did call them.
He did call them out. He called them out big time because the NHL is very reluctant to put their officials, their series supervisor, or the head of NHL officiating in front of a microphone. And Sweeney basically said, "You want to be transparent? You want us to answer your questions for you? Screw you. Put the referees in front of the microphone."
Yeah.
And I will not be surprised if he gets fined for that comment. Sweeney called out the NHL and the officiating big time. Stop with this nonsense that he did not.
He did it in a way, too, where if he does get a fine, he can appeal it. Because
Right.
They came out saying, do not criticize the officials. Early in the season, they said, if you criticize our officials, you will get penalized severely. He didn't criticize anybody. He just simply said, you know our interpretation by our actions. We thought it was interference, so we challenged it for interference. Beyond that, you want to know their interpretation, you got to ask them.
Right. And you know what?
And so,
he's Harvard educated. Stupid. He knows how to put words out there.
So as soon as that fine comes down, let's say we get the news, oh, the league has fined Don Sweeney $25,000. He can sit there and go, the fuck you did. What? I didn't criticize anybody. I just said, you guys got to answer the questions. I can't answer them because you'll fine me for answering them. He literally did the exact opposite of what they would fine him for. Doesn't mean they won't try. Doesn't mean they won't. But everybody wanted him to come out with, with Thor hammer and just whack it down on the table and be like, all right, I don't give a fuck. I'm cutting the check. Fuck this, fuck that. They wanted him to come out swinging. He swung strategically.
He did. And you don't think that the NHL is looking hard at his words and what he said?
Rob says Sweeney's boss is part of the group that holds Bettman's leash. If Bettman doesn't want official criticism, that means Jacobs agrees. So would Sweeney go against something that Jacob most likely wants? You're assuming there's 32 owners. All right. Whether Jacobs feels one way or another doesn't fucking matter. He's one of 32. And he doesn't make decisions for Bettman. All they do is they hire him to represent them in what he feels is in the best interest of 32 different people. People, not the whole league. He represents the owners. So it's not beneficial to the owners to have official explanations for mistakes. It doesn't benefit the owners at all.
No, not at all.
It just... he still called him out. And yes, I think on something like that, Sweeney would go against it because Sweeney's going to, you can't act like you're a league with transparency and then have none and then be pissed when someone calls you out for it. You can't. I mean, and I get it. I think they're just terrified of what these people might say in front of the microphone because you'll have, this is what they are. This is what they're worried about. They're worried about a reporter looking at these last couple games and going, so there was a call made for goaltender interference against Jacob Lauko in Game 3, but then you ruled no goaltender interference, even though it's clear black as day as the writing on the paper in Game 4. Why'd you screw it up so bad? And the representative sitting there going, I don't know. We messed up. That doesn't look good for the league. Alex has a question here. Zaka seems disappointing. No, Coyle at least being physical and trying every shift.
I wouldn't
Zaka,
say Zach is not trying.
yeah,
Um, he has what, 4 points in his last 5 games? It's more than Coyle. Um, you know,
I
uh,
think kicking him over to the wing was a good move, though.
yeah.
But Geeky has not been playing well.
I mean, you can go up and down the lineup and say that just about every player at different points. Pasternak has not been playing well.
Yeah,
I,
I'm interested. I'm interested to see what the end of the season injury list looks like.
yeah, but I don't want to make excuses for the team. You
Rob
know,
says my opinion is the owners all agreed to handle official issues behind closed doors at their owners' meetings. They don't want the media involved, but that's just a guess on my part.
oh, I guarantee that's 100%, Rob.
Yeah, it's
Which
the only.
is why you can't say, which is why I'm saying that you can't say Sweeney did not call them out, because he did call them out.
Yeah,
He's basically saying this behind the door stuff isn't working. You need transparency. You need your referees to answer why they decided this, that, or the other thing. Not the coaches, not the players, not the general managers.
yeah. Literally saying we can't answer these questions. One, because we're not the person who made the judgment call, and two, you already know how we feel about it. We can't do anything about what the call is. When you get a call incorrect, the best thing that you can do to have any sort of what's the word I'm looking for? In order to have any sort of stability going forward, you have to be able to say we fucked up. It's not going to
Mm-hmm.
make me feel better that they sit there and go, yeah, that goal should have been called back. But you know what? Knowing that they will sit there and go, yeah, that goal we got wrong. At least it makes you look like less of a joke, because you can sit there and say, we made a mistake. It happens. That's it. No one's acknowledging
Yep.
the mistakes of this league.
Right. You want to know that they acknowledge it and learn from it.
Yeah, I agreed. I do think he called them out without putting it in black and white, just the right amount of gray with that statement. I mean, yeah, I think saying it this way was more calculated than people give him credit for.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't be surprised if other GMs are on his side.
Oh, I guarantee you. I bet you 30 of the 31 other GMs are on his side.
Right. So now what do you do when you have 31 of 32 GMs who feel one way, but the owners feel another way? Players, I bet you the players would appreciate not being asked all these questions. Yeah, because
Mm-hmm.
Sweeney's getting ripped because he's saying, "Oh, don't ask the players about it. Don't ask the coaching staff about it," because the media first runs over to Montgomery. Oh, what was the explanation? They have every right to ask the question. First of all, that's their
Mm-hmm.
job. And the question was, what was the explanation you were given? That's not a bad question. But to then sit there, and there are members of the media who will bait players and coaches, especially in those sensitive moments right after a game where they're all still heated from the moment. They get baited from the media, say something, and get fined for it. Those questions are the ones that he's talking about. Don't bait the players, don't bait the coaches into something that you know is going to get them fined. He's trying to protect his team. That's all. Rob said, with the pasta issues, I think it's a lot of frustration, but also the extra focus that the playoffs bring on the defensive side of things. He's not getting the room he gets in the regular season. You seeing any less room for Pasta to work?
Oh yeah,
Me too.
especially in the Toronto series. Um, but um, great players find ways to overcome.
Yeah. It doesn't help though that now their other biggest scoring threat is has been out for game 4. So let's swing over to that. Sam Bennett pops Brad Marchand in the head, and it takes 45 hours for a second replay view to come out that clearly shows. I mean, you can see from any angle that he pops him with the right hand right in the face. Now, some are trying to say that that's not the hit that knocked him out of the game because he came back and played, and there was another hit. I think it was also with Bennett where there was like a head-to-head collision, and people are trying to say that's what knocked him out of the game. But I mean, the guy cold cocked him with the butt end of his stick, and nothing.
Okay, first of all, it was clear and obvious that he was woozy after that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
The unfortunate part is the people that make the call on concussion protocol. It's the ones that call down and say, "Hey, send him to the dark room. There's a possibility of a concussion." All saw the same thing we did until that second video or that video was released showing a clear
Swing
to the head. So that's why concussion protocol didn't come into play right away. They were saying the same things all of us, the league, everybody saw. My question is why wasn't that video made available until 40 hours later?
That's the big question that I have. Now, I you can clearly see on the replay after he does it, Bennett and Kachuk both look around over their shoulders going, "Did anybody see it? I think we got away with that one." You can see players on the Florida bench looking, going, "Oh shit, he got away with that one." Like, you can see the reaction. I'd be willing to bet there's a camera angle that caught Panger down there going, "Oh my God, he just did that." So there are other clues that something went down. Now, I'm not going to sit here and rip the officials for not calling roughing in the moment because, like you said, we all had that one angle for 40 hours after the game, and they're trying to call it in the game. Their angle, whatever, they missed it. It happens. That's not the part that is most bothersome. Taking 40 hours for that replay to come out after the league basically says nothing to see here, folks. They were pushing a narrative that wasn't the hit that knocked him out of the game. On all the highlights and all the things that I saw down here in the States, at least, all the replays of it on all the pregame, postgame, and all that stuff, they would show that and they would go, "Well, you might be able to see something here," but then he came back and played for another almost 40 minutes and, this, that, and the other thing. Then this is his final shift. And then they show the other collision that's head to head and they go, "This is what knocked him out of the game." So there's just, how does the Department of Player Safety, even if they get the video 40 hours later, not come back and go, "Oh yeah, we fucked that one up. Now that we have this angle, we've got to do something." What's the statute of limitations for that?
There isn't one. They could lay a suspension tomorrow if they wanted to.
But they're not going to. They made it clear they're not going to because they've already fined Zadorov $5,000 and they've suspended Carson Soucy for a game for a cross check to Connor McDavid. Is Brad Marchand not as important to his team as Connor McDavid is to his?
Yeah.
It shouldn't matter. The penalty is the danger is the danger. And if you're the Department of Player Safety, it doesn't matter what this player has done in the past. Because that's the other thing. Oh, live by the sword, die by the sword. Fuck your sword. Doesn't matter what Marchand has done in the past, because when he did things like that, he got suspended. He got his penalty. He served his penalty. Irrelevant.
Can I tell another story?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm going back to 2011 again. So Colin Campbell was head of Department of Player Safety at the time. Colin Campbell was a regular customer of mine whenever he came home to Tavistock, Ontario, in the off season. And it just so happened that the Bruins had won the cup that year. And I was about to go see Gregory Campbell with the cup in his day with the cup. So Colin Campbell had dropped by. He was heading there, and I ended up following him to the arena where it was taking place. And rather than waiting in the lineup that was 2 hours long, he brought me in the back door, so I got in right away. And I had a long chat with him because that was the following the whole Matt Cook incident.
Yeah.
And he told me straight out, he said, Dom, he says, I wanted to suspend Matt Cook. I was ready to suspend Matt Cook. Everybody else in the department was telling me that I can't. Everyone involved with the league was telling me I can't, because as the rule was written at the time, what Matt Cook did was not suspension worthy. Okay? So, anyway, to make a long story short, he had wanted to get out of player safety for a while, and they kept him in there for a while, and they kept asking him to stay because they couldn't get anybody to do the job. And he's telling me how thankless it is, how everybody that's working under him interprets everything differently than he would. Used again the Matt Cook, Mark Savard incident. It is what it is. It doesn't matter who's there, what the call is. There's always going to be one side that is happy, and there's always going to be one side that's pissed off with whatever decision is made.
Yeah, it seems to me, though, in this instance, the side that's pissed off has a lot more fans, a lot more people on it than just Bruins fans. That's the thing. There are a lot of people sitting there looking at that going, how did nothing come from it? And, how is it not even fine? Like Rob says, did the Department of Player Safety...
I'll tell you, in the...
I think we're getting a little less.
To me, that's where the way the Ontario Hockey League handles it is much better than the NHL. And that's simple. Contact to the head is an automatic suspension.
There you go. I would take it. I would. Let's see. Where are they pretending it was a nothing play? Bonded Lock Services, Inc. That's a free ad right there. After the video came out, the NHLOL could have suspended him the next day. They stuck their head in the sand and pretended not to know anything. The NHLOL would lose in court if Marchand's career is over. And then BG411 adds Emily Kaplan's tweet to the NHL's reaction. The NHL said they didn't see the reverse angle until Sunday, and they said it was not a sucker punch, but as a hockey play with two players engaged, which it's clear as day that he punched him. Clear as day. They were both engaged in the play, yes, but it's clear as day that he punched him. Now, again, if the NHL didn't have the reverse angle until Sunday, one, that's a problem in of itself. Why the fuck not? Second of all, doesn't matter. you can still come out with a penalty on Sunday. You can still come out with the retribution on Sunday as soon as you see that. It takes 3 seconds to issue well, not 3 seconds, but you know what I mean. It doesn't take very long to sit there and go, nope, he's suspended for tonight. We're working on an official statement. You let the
And
team know he's not eligible to play tonight, and then you come out with a statement within an hour.
and to go back to what I said about how the OHL handles it, even if the NHL is right and it's a hockey play, in the OHL, that's still a suspension.
Yeah, I would take it. Real quick, Rob, I didn't want to forget these. He says, with the pasta issues aside, I think it's a lot of frustration, but also the extra focus that the playoffs bring in the defensive side he added on, and nobody else on his line is a threat to do anything on their own. So D-zone coverage definitely focuses on pasta. I mean,
Yeah,
that's where
there's no
shaking up the
arguing
line.
that.
Yeah, and that's where shaking up the lines and double shifting pasta, getting him out there with guys like Maroon and Frederick and so on and so forth. That's where that comes to play, and we saw that in the Toronto series. So we'll have to see if Monty goes back to that kind of thing. Now,
I
it
understand
was
the idea of putting him out with Maroon and Frederick, and that's to buy him space.
yeah. No, we talked about it when he did it with Toronto. Some people were freaking out about it, which was actually kind of funny. But no, it's just, real quick back to the Marchand thing though. He did travel with the team to Florida. So his status right now for game 5 is unknown. I think he's a game time decision. But officially right now he's still listed as day to day. But he flew with the team to Florida, so I think that's huge. And we might see him for game 5. There are others that we might see for game 5. Before they left for the trip, they recalled from Providence Brandon Bussey, which I don't think we'll see him, Jason Magna, and Patrick Brown. Do you think we see Patrick Brown re-enter this lineup?
I think it's possible. In in the game he did play, he wasn't bad. He did what he was supposed to do. I don't know who you take out. Um, that would be my concern. But I guess if Marchand is not able to go, that makes the decision a little bit easier because if Marchand is able to go, you still have to take somebody out.
So who do you think is playing better right now, Brazeau or Maroon? Or better yet, who do you think has been more important to the lineup? Let me rephrase.
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to say something that's we're going to have fans of both players come after me. For as big and as strong as they are, um, those two are not winning very many 50-50 puck battles along the walls.
No, they're not.
Matter of fact, even the ones they should be winning, they're not winning.
Part of
And
why I
I
have
say that about both of them.
I leave Maroon in because I think he is a little bit more of a deterrent for the games getting out of control.
Hmm.
Because you've seen he was clearly frustrated by the narrative because he spoke with the media today after Sweeney and he's sitting there going, I'm willing to fight them. None of them are willing to drop the gloves with me.
He challenged the bench.
He's gone after every single one of them and they have all become soft dog shit.
Hmm.
None of them want anything to do with Pat Maroon. I think you leave Maroon in the lineup because of that. I think your fourth line, you should go with Beecher, Brown, Maroon. I think that line worked
Where are you
well.
putting Lauco then?
Third line instead of Brazeau.
Okay.
Your third line can be Lauco, Frederick, and I think you'll mix it up a little bit, but I think you can probably put Heinen there. Assuming Marchand comes back into the lineup. Let me preface it with that. Because then you can have Marchand, Coyle, DeBrusque, Zaka, Geeky, Pasta.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Bonded Lock Services has a good question. Why should they engage with Maroon? They're winning. Because they want to cheap shot people and not answer for it. That's why. But he also points out if they allow Marchand to play with a concussion, they're crazy, or even fly with a concussion. Have we confirmed that it's a concussion? It sure as hell looks like one. I'm just asking, have we confirmed it 100% that that's the injury? Because all they've said is upper body.
I don't think we're not going to know. They're not going to say until after the playoffs.
Rob also said, who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes? Ciccolini, Department of Player Safety. How about the lying eyes? I'll believe those. Let's see. BG411. I think they have to keep the Heinen Coyle Frederick line together. That was the best line last night. They did go back to it, and I wouldn't be against it. I would not be against it. That means you can have DeBrusque with
Pasternak.
DeBrusque with Pasta and Zaka. That would be a good line. And then again, I would put Lauko on that third line to bring Brown back in the lineup. I think Brown will give you more on the fourth line than you're getting from Brazil on the third. Just my thought.
Yeah.
Rob says, I like the Frederick Heinen line last night. Thought it was the most effective line 5-on-5. Thought they generated chances. Mike says, hey guys, just jumping in. Hey Dom, quick free agent question. Any info on the Bruins having interest in free agent from Russia? Maxim, I'm going to butcher it.
Ziplikov.
It seems like a lot of teams are looking at him.
That was the rumor, 3 months ago? And I said then relax because he can't sign until later this month. He becomes a free agent, on May 1st, but every KHL contract stipulates that a player has to be made available until after the IIHF World Hockey Championships. And even though Russia is not in the tournament, he has to be available until then, which ends May 26th. So, like, all those rumors that came out at the beginning of the season to me were all bullshit because the league had warned the NHL teams not to communicate with KHL players or their counterparts, i.e., teams in the KHL, about buying a contract out. So until May 26th, I don't see anything happening with Ziplikov.
And obviously, there will be plenty of time for free agent chatter when the season is over. This team's going to have a lot of cap space going into next season, which, again, if this is how you go out of the playoffs, if this is how you lose, with some crucial momentum shifting calls and Brad Marchand missing some time and getting I think you're going to learn more about your team and see bigger changes if you get walloped by the Panthers and you lose 4-3, 4-1 rather, versus if you make a comeback and lose 4-3. Because the hope is there. Don't get me wrong, I want to see them come back and win the series. I want to. That's what I'm rooting for. However, in the long term, are they going to look at this team and say, hey, we were almost there, like the Leafs do every fucking year? Hey, we were almost there. We almost made it past Game 7. Again, we're close to a cup for 12 wins away or 13 wins away. Or are they going to look at it and go, we were not nearly as close as we thought we should be? even though it was a transition year.
Here's how
So
I see it. It was a transition year. To me, they've met my expectations for this year. So I call it a success. I would go as far as to say, in a lot of ways, it's very successful. We finally have on our answer as to whether Jeremy Swayman can be a true number one.
that
We've
answers a
answered
very
that question.
resounding yes.
Okay. That gives you options now with Linus Allmark. Number two, we've seen that Mason Lohrei will become a top four, quite possibly top three or top two NHL defenseman in the very near future. We've seen that Parker Waterspoon can handle the number 6 or number 7 role, which basically locks up your decor for next season. Up front, we've seen that Beecher is a capable NHL player. Brazeau has come out of nowhere. Matthew Poitras made the team out of camp as a 19-year-old, and there's bigger and better things ahead for him. Trent Frederick, we saw him take the next step. So we've learned a lot this season.
Coyle could be a shutdown center.
Yeah, we also learned that those people that do the national prospect rankings are full of shit, which is why you really should follow my work when it comes to the prospects and not Corey Pronman or Scott Wheeler or those guys. Because I've been telling you all along to watch out for these guys. And, it is what it is. A lot of questions answered this year. A lot.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure. And like I said, there's going to be plenty of time to talk free agents and trades and all that stuff come the off season. Yes, I would believe my lying eyes bonded lock surfaces because I know what I saw. So let's see. Even after May 26th, would Ziplikov want to come here? Maybe.
Well, the contract's going to be for next year, so
it would be a good situation. It's not exactly like it's a bad spot. So a guy like Pastrnak makes players want to come here. He does. So BAU, as long as the money keeps rolling in. Oh, business as usual. Okay, as long as the money keeps rolling in. Transition year, but 3 out of 4 of the 3/4 of the team isn't playoff ready. Also, does Don Sweeney have the ability to recognize tough talent, not just nice guys? Well, I mean, he's the one who went out and got Maroon. He drafted Trent Frederick, and people gave him shit for it. Like, yeah, I'd say he'd be able to get some tough talent.
Yeah, he brought Lucic back at the start of the year. It's not like he's shy about bringing players in like that. I would argue drafting Trevor Kuntar fits into that as well.
Yeah.
Drafting Christian Konstantinsky, drafting Jackson Edward, drafting Ryan Mast.
He's got some big, mean defensemen coming up.
Yeah.
Rob asks, with the benefit of hindsight, would you rather have had Chychrun instead of Lindholm when they were both on the market? Bonded Lock says Chychrun by far.
I don't know. I've been a big fan of Jacob Chychrun going back to his Sarnia Sting days. So, and the Bruins were interested in drafting him until McAvoy fell. So, um,
I guess the real question is, would you rather have Chychrun or McAvoy? I'll take Mac.
yeah, I'll take Mac because for the Lindholm Chychrun, I don't know why they didn't go after Chychrun. I think
They probably did, but
health.
Arizona was holding on such a high price tag. They said F that.
Well, I think the health concerns with Chychrun played a huge role.
That too. That too. Let's see. He also says we need a Rempe type, need more toughness across the board. I don't think you need a guy. You already have a Rempe type in Pat Maroon, who plays about 7, 8, 9 minutes a night at most and rigs around, rumbles around. That's what Pat Maroon does. Rempe is just quite a few years younger than he is. So you already have that. The question is, do you want to bring Pat Maroon back if he's open to it?
Yeah, he's got to be open to it, but I don't know. I think this is it.
One thing that he has done though, because he was traded to Tampa, re-signed in Tampa, traded to Minnesota, re-signed in Minnesota, traded to Boston. Does he re-sign in Boston? He seems to. I'd be open to a 1-year deal depending on how much, maybe 2. Again, depending on price. I think that's more of the issue than anything. I don't want to overpay for him, and I'm not bringing Milan Lucic back. So
No.
and if it comes down to it, him or Brazeau, there's some weighing to be done there. But let's see. Rob says, just real quick on the Chychrun thing, I think Chychrun brings a different dynamic to the back end, and the age matches up better with when I think they will be contenders again. They're contenders right now, Rob. Like, right now, they are already contenders. They're not as close to a cup final as we would have liked, but they're still contending because guess what? In the next 4 games, if they get some bounces, they play their game and they're able to get their physical level up and get more shots to the net. Bobrovsky's not stopping the puck the way that Swayman is. If they right the ship and they can put away the Panthers, they're 1 round away from the final. That's a contender. They're in the top 8 teams right now. Like, I don't know what else to tell you.
Who expected that?
I mean, I wasn't that far off. I said coming into the season they would win the division, and they damn near almost did. And I expected them to win at least a round. And it wasn't pretty, but they did it. And again, if they play their game, they're good enough to get through this round too. They're good enough to beat this team. We've seen it this year before. They're not playing like it, but that's a whole nother issue. Brandon Locke adds, we need a young Pat Maroon. This version has no rubber left on the tires. And yes, I would bring him back. Okay, well, let me ask you this. Because you said we needed a young Pat Maroon, but you'll bring back Pat Maroon. He has no rubber left on the tires, but you want to bring him back. Which one is it? If he's got no rubber left on the tires, why are you bringing him back? Please explain in your next comment. Rob says, I think it's easy to find a 4th line, 13th forward tough guy. Clearly it's not, but anyway, he says the difference maker is finding a top 9 or even top 6 guy that can play a regular shift and also intimidate, but that costs a bunch of, I'm guessing money is the next word that he's coming back with. I mean, yeah, but at the same time, I mean, Pasta's that kind of difference maker. You need more than one. You look at these other teams in the playoffs, they have more guys. Like, yeah, Martian is that kind of guy too. That's what carries you is multiple guys like that. Think about the teams that are in the playoffs. The Rangers. They've got Fox on defense. They've got even Keandre Miller on defense. They've got a solid top 4. Let's leave it there. And then they've got multiple guys on the front end who have the capabilities to put the puck in the net, and they are doing that. Zibanejad, Kreider, Lafreniere. I'm going to miss a bunch, but you get my point.
And they have a top-notch goaltender.
And they have a top-notch goaltender in Shesterkin. You look at Carolina, they don't have the top-notch goaltender, but they have one who's good enough most of the time. They've got one of the deepest D cores in the league. Slavin is probably one of the best stay-at-home defensemen. He's an ass, but Tony DeAngelo can still move the puck on the power play. He still can play the game. Then they've also got Brett Burns. Who else am I missing in their top four?
Sorry, I was reading. I missed who you mentioned.
Slavin, DeAngelo, Burns. Who else they got in their top four in Carolina? Anyway, up front, they've got guys who can score.
Oh my God, who are you missing?
I don't know. That's the thing. But they got Kuznetsov, Aho, Teravainen, Svechnikov, like Jake Gensel. Like these are all guys that can score. Then you look on the other side.
I mean, there's no sense. There's no sense in naming the rosters because we all know they're built differently than the Bruins.
Exactly.
The Bruins, Shea.
Thank you.
But yeah, the Bruins just aren't built like them, and this is why this year has just been a transition year, and we have to learn to accept that. I mean, we've been preaching it since last off season.
Yeah. Let's see. True. I think it's about his back surgery, and it isn't that easy to find his type. But long run, I would like to see Maroon and a young toughie. The hole is too big for just Maroon. Rob adds on, I meant that the toughness scale, people clamor for a bunch of tough guys that play less than 10 minutes. Let's see, that doesn't move the needle, in my opinion. It's finding toughness that plays a regular shift, and you have to draft or overpay for that.
Like Matthew Tkachuk?
Yeah, pretty much. Although that trade is looking like they didn't overpay at all. So,
no.
Alex says, one more question. If you haven't already covered it, can you explain more about the Bruins forecheck? Felt like it was really good early against Toronto, first few games, and then kind of stopped.
You want me to start, Chris? And then you can jump in?
Yeah, I remember some of your explaining. So
they seem to play two systems, and I haven't quite figured out when they use one and when they use the other. But in most cases, it's send one forward in. They basically use a 1-2-2. So one guy goes in, two guys are a little bit further out, and the defensemen are waiting in the neutral zone. And if the opposition breaks out, they collapse and close off the neutral zone, which is great. It's basically a form of the trap. But a lot of times you see them use a 2-1-2. So they'll send forward one in to get in on the forecheck. Forward two is there for support to gain possession. Forward three is a little bit higher out towards the blue line in the zone to try and keep possession. And once they get it, the defensemen move in and they have all five attackers in the zone.
I hope that answers your question, Alex.
But what the game situation and what I think I spoke about it in the Toronto series. It was dependent on who had the puck. Like if Morgan Riley had the puck, they were sending just the one guy in because Morgan Riley, let's face it, can move the puck. So they were prepared to basically trap Toronto. But if any of their other defensemen, they set the two guys in to try and gain possession.
Well, luckily, Alex says that explanation helps. So, real quick, getting caught up on a couple other comments here. Blue Jays Bills says the Bruins need a top line center that will slot everyone in their proper spots. Adds on that Poitras, Coyle are middle six. Do you see middle six, top two as Poitras' ceiling, or do you think if he can get more size, if he could be a number one?
Not next year. I think eventually
Oh,
he has the talent to be a number one center in the NHL, but that's a couple of years away.
sure. Let's see. And then Bonded Lock also says Brady Kachuk for unknown pipe dream. Mike says maybe Jackson Edwards will bring some much needed toughness on the back end in 3 to 4 years, potentially.
But you know what? He's going to bring toughness. This guy
Oh,
is
I
nasty, man. He's nasty.
was like he's going to bring the Sam Bennett toughness.
I'm currently, well, let's put it this way. I'm currently putting together my end of season prospect updates. It'll be a several part series, and I can tell you off the top of my head what I wrote about Jackson Edward is the Bruins have lacked an Adam McQuaid type defenseman since, well, Adam McQuaid himself.
Yeah.
And Jackson Edward is the guy who can fill that role.
I'm looking forward to seeing him at the next development camps that he goes to. Let's see. Jason jumps in and says, I feel like you can only play one of Brazeau or Maroon. Having two of them playing slows the team down. And Bonded Lock jumps in. B's D-men not standing up at the blue line. Forwards not coming back and effectively helping out.
Well, actually, the D men are standing up at the blue line when they can, without the back pressure from the forwards. When they're not doing it, because a lot of times they are doing it, especially on the PK. They kill things at the red line and at the blue line because the back pressure is there, but it's not there all the time, and that's a problem.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is they're not. There are moments where they play their game, and that's when you think they are going to make a move, and then all of a sudden something happens, whether it's out of their control or just stop, lapses on in their control, and things just fall apart, and they can't refind it quick enough. Bonded Lock says, can the Bruins get anything significant in a trade for Lindholm? As in moving Hampus Lindholm out of here? I'm
I'm
not
sure.
looking.
I'm sure a team like Toronto would pay a nice price for a Hampus Lindholm.
Would they give you
But
Mark?
no. But um, if I'm the Bruins, I'm not looking to move Hampus Lindholm.
No, he's not one of the ones I'm looking at.
No.
Then he says that forward. Then I'm not sure. Bonded Lock Services, not sure, but then he says forwards look lazy in transition. Sometimes they all look lazy in transition.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is the consistency. Every once in a while, they get a nice little ozone attack. He says Nylander done. You're not getting Nylander from Toronto. Sorry. Not even for Hampus. They get nice pressures in the ozone, and then all of a sudden it just dwindles down to nothing. They get the puck out, they have to regroup, and things just fall apart. Jason says, do you think Brazeau is a regular NHLer, or will he be back with Providence next year? I think if he was going to be back with Providence, he would have already been sent back this year. I just wonder if he's someone they look to move on from and just not, because he's a free agent at the end of the year, if I remember correctly.
No, he's signed for next year.
Is he? So
Yeah.
then they're probably hoping he learns from Maroon this year and he can take that next step. That would be my guess.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of roster decisions to come for next year. They've got $21 million in cap space. I
And
don't
that's
think,
before the cap goes up.
yeah, no, that's what the cap up.
Oh,
But
is it?
yeah, a lot of decisions to be made. I don't think beyond the core you can guarantee a spot for anybody on this roster moving
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah, I think there's going to be some moves that are made. Some may not like some of the moves, but we'll have plenty of off-season time to talk about that. Let's get to the off-season first, because right now you can't make any trades. You can't sign anybody for this year. Going, you know what I mean? Like it just you're done for now when with your roster. So, I mean, do you
Well,
think?
that's not true. You can make trades right now. I think we
Okay,
saw it last year with teams making trades in the playoffs.
well, you're not going to make a trade of significance right now, and by that I mean you're
No.
not trading anyone off your NHL roster. Let me make that clear. Um,
Yeah,
but
you're not adding Nylander this time of year.
no, no, and you're certainly not. Maybe if you threw Linus Allmark in with Hampus, then you might be able to get Marner from him. But uh, trust me, they're not looking to help you, and you shouldn't be looking to help them. Granted, they do it by
Exactly.
mistake by letting you take Tuukka Rask, but that's besides that. Any final thoughts as we actually go into the 8 p.m. Eastern hour here? Any final thoughts from you, Dom, on anything
Well,
that we've talked about?
that now that we're on Toronto, you know, um, Toronto's lack of Stanley Cups has been because they're always helping the Boston Bruins with their goaltending. And it starts with Jerry Cheevers back in the late 60s. Where people forget Jerry Cheevers was Toronto Maple Leaf property. I think the Bruins traded Bruce Gamble to Toronto for Jerry Cheevers. And Cheevers went on to win 2 Stanley Cups uh, with Boston. Then came Tuukka Rask, who was the Bruins' winningest goaltender, won a Stanley Cup in a backup role. Um, and now, apparently, taking Ian Scott instead of Jeremy Swayman when Swayman thought the Leafs are going to be picking him 1 pick earlier. So the Leafs keep providing the Bruins with goaltending, top-notch goaltending at that.
Hey, you know what? I'll take it. I'll take it if they want to keep helping us like that.
Yeah.
So I know we'll be doing a lot of stuff when it comes to the off season. I'll have some stuff out there. I'm kind of already doing some research into some pieces that I'll be putting together for who I think they should target at various positions and some depth signings and whatnot. I think we saw it coming in this year where the internal competition was really a positive for them. Something that they put emphasis on in the past, but never really kind of stuck to. So definitely, hopefully, you all follow along with us. You can like, comment, subscribe, click the little bell for when we go live, which we'll be doing throughout the off season. I think we're still gonna plan on going live on Wednesday after tomorrow's game. Uh,
Yep.
take 24 hours to kind of digest it, see what happens. Hopefully, we have another game on. Let's see, that would be on Thursday that we get to
Yes.
enjoy as well. But if not, we'll be here for the Sorrows tomorrow or on Wednesday. Um, like I said, I'm rooting for them to come back. I had picked them in 6 or 5, but I think it was 6 that I picked them in. That's
No,
obvious.
you had them in 7.
Did I?
Yeah, you
I
had
thought
Boston in 7. I had Florida in 7.
I thought I had them in 6 at one point, but either way, I had Boston winning the series, so I'm hoping they come back to win. Do you see the Rangers closing out Carolina tonight?
Won't be easy.
Think they
It
do it?
won't be easy. No, I don't think they do it tonight.
No, think it goes one more.
Yeah.
I would buy that. I think Carolina is desperate enough; they'll be able to pull one more out, but we'll see how that goes. I know we touched real brief Vancouver and Edmonton. What do you think of that one?
Wow. It's all goaltending, man. It's all
That
goaltending.
is looking amazing right now.
Yeah. I don't know what to make of it. I
Talk
thought
about
for sure Edmonton would win the series, but now I don't know.
oh my god, me too. I think I had him in 5,
Yeah.
and now I'm sitting here going shit. No one
I
else is
think
playing for him.
I think I had them in 6, but
So
it's not looking good.
no, now they're panicked about goaltending. But talk about
Yeah.
throwing a monkey wrench into the goaltending situation. They had DeSmith, they have Demko, now they have Shelovs. Like, what are they going to do going
Yeah.
into next year? This kid looks legit. Now, obviously, he has to earn it again going into next season. But if he takes him on a deep playoff run, that says something. And maybe all of a
Yeah.
sudden, Dr. Demko becomes available because there was rumors about him being available a year or two ago
Mhm.
when everything else was falling apart up there. So maybe he wants out, and that's another goaltender on the market. And then Dallas, Colorado. I'm still taking Dallas, baby.
Yeah, I hate picking against Colorado because 2 reasons. McKinnon and McCarr.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just but
Those are 2 damn good reasons, but you know what? I'll counter them with everybody else on that roster. Don't get me wrong,
it's
Nichushkin is good, and Rantanen, they're both very good complementary players, but I just think
yeah,
Dallas is that much deeper.
I
And
think Dallas. Well, didn't Sagan have 2 goals last night?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Um,
They get him
you know,
scoring again. Watch out because I think he's back on the 3rd line for them.
yeah. I'm a huge fan of Robertson, Ottinger, so I
They went
want to
out and they
see
got
them do well.
Tanev at the deadline.
Yeah.
I think top to bottom, they're just the deeper option. So
I'm just mixed on that one because I like both teams and I would root for both teams, but I don't
whichever
know.
one wins, in my opinion, is the Western Conference finalist. Because I think whichever team wins is going to beat either Edmonton or Vancouver.
I think so. I think
But
so.
you never know. Vancouver's on something right now, and they're playing well. So it'll be a good series either way. But again, tomorrow we've got our bees to worry about. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Like I said, we'll be back Wednesday. We'll be shooting for 6:30. We'll get the link out there again. Any final thoughts to wrap this up? We're getting about 8:15 here, so I know you've got to get going, as do I. So, any final thoughts?
I'll just end it with the usual go bees.